I'm Jill Lepore, and I'm really happy to be here today with all of you to talk about privacy. Privacy, of course, has been very much in the news lately, and you all know what I'm talking about when I say that we're very anxious people when it comes to privacy. The only thing more cherished than privacy is publicity. Exposing then the history of this paradox, trying to figure out where did that even come from? Why is there such a paradox? And what can we do about it if there's something that needs to be done about it? I think requires thinking about three different things: mystery, secrecy, and privacy. And that's what I'm going to mainly talk about. And so what I'm going to argue here is that much that was once mysterious became secret, and then it became private. Mystery is what we can't know but are asked to believe. Secrecy is what is known but not to everyone. And privacy is what allows us to keep what we know to ourselves. And for most of its history, the word mystery had a distinctly religious meaning. Immortality, for instance, is a mystery. Secrecy is mystery yielding to science. Scientists want to uncover the secrets of aging. And one way of understanding privacy, as is most commonly used today, is that it's mystery made secular and secrecy made into a matter of law. The mysterious becomes secret, for instance, when what lies inside a woman's body becomes exposed, or when what lies inside of our blood is made visible. Only then comes privacy, which is another way of saying the case for privacy always comes too late, which is one of the explanations that I have for the kind of anxiety, the very acute anxiety that many people feel today about electronic surveillance. One of the ways that we can illustrate this change from mystery to secrecy to privacy is by looking at the very tools that make possible moving something from what is from the realm of the hidden to the realm of the seen. So for instance, the printed book, which ushers in the end of the age of mystery, yields to the camera, which exposes the secrets of the natural world. And then more recently, the book that's also a camera invades our privacy. It used to be that you could hide secrets by writing them down, because very few people could read and write. But the 19th century witnessed the rapid and near universal expansion of literacy, so that suddenly almost everybody could read and write. That's actually terrifying. It's completely more terrifying than the NSA. Like if you were a monk and you could write stuff down, and you knew that nobody could read it except a few other monks, there was just no anxiety about secrecy there, right? There's a whole, you just exist in a separate sphere of society, a whole level at which you know that the intimacy of your own mind is protected by the act of writing. Like, God forbid, someone's going to actually steal my phone and read my text, and it's just, I'm going to be exposed in this way that no one in history has ever been exposed before. I'm living in this wholly novel moment and age. Actually, no, you're not, because what was really new was when everybody could write, and then people wrote a lot of letters. And a letter is a little bit easier to break into than your email. I wrote in the magazine a piece earlier this year about a scandal that confronted England in 1844 when an Italian named Giuseppe Mazzini, who was an exile living in London, began to suspect that the British government was reading his mail. He decided that he would mail himself letters, and he would put little grains of sand, he put poppy seeds and others, and he mailed letters to himself, and then he mailed these same letters to friends of his. And the letters that went to his friends, they opened them up and the poppy seeds spilled out. The mail that he sent to himself, he would open up, there'd be no poppy seeds. He asked a friend to investigate this, a friend who's a member of parliament. The member of parliament initiated an investigation. It led to the revelation on the part of a committee of secrecy that was formed to conduct the investigation. Not only had Mazzini's mail been read, but in fact, there was such a thing as the secret department of the post office, not known as the NSA, which actually had been reading people's mail for centuries. It had been so secret that nobody in Parliament even knew about it, except for like the one guy who denied it. So there was this tremendous investigation, and it was issued this report that sort of offered a report on the entire history of mail, the entire history of the Post Service. This story was widely followed in the United States, partly because Mazzini was a Republican. That is to say, he was urging the formation of an Italian republic. He was a revolutionary, and he was a great hero to many Americans. So people in the United States were hugely upset about this. That got tangled up with the question of whether the doings of the government itself should be made public, which was a bigger question in some ways in the United Kingdom than it was in the United States, where that had been a fundamental premise of the establishment of the United States, that we would end the era of mystery and usher in an age of transparency in government. Mazzini himself wrote about it and quoted from Bentham and argued that secrecy is but another word for fear. Mystery is the name of the beast in the Revelations, the great monster by which was typified all the civil and ecclesiastical corruptions of the earth, and had on its forehead the name written, and that name was Mystery. So even this particular affair is very much bound up in the shifting meanings of mystery and secrecy in the 1840s. This tremendous anxiety that has to do with the expansion of literacy, with the rise of photography, and with new ideas about the relationships between peoples and their rulers. For Higginson, privacy had come to mean something that actually applied particularly to women and that actually trapped them and didn't actually provide them with liberty but denied them liberty. That idea that Higginson had, that he expressed in this book in 1881, finds a very elaborate expression in 1890 in one of the most important law review articles ever written, and which is the basis for most of our legal ideas about privacy today. And that is an essay called The Right to Privacy, published in 1890, written by two Boston lawyers, Samuel Warren and Louis Brandeis. And it's here that Warren and Brandeis argue that there exists, it's not in the Constitution, it had never been mentioned before, but it had always existed in some way or another, a constitutional right of inviolate personality. This articulation of the right to privacy is huge in its impact for us today. The rhetoric of it is seen all over the place. It's cited everywhere. And it does make a claim that has endured. But it actually has all kinds of other facets, and you can see them if you look more carefully at the contemporary world in which this essay was written. Think even about Emily Dickinson. Thomas Wentworth Higginson, who was upset about privacy and the ways in which it trapped women, was, of course, Dickinson's most important correspondent. She sent him her poems, which she refused to publish because she preferred to remain private. Dickinson, though, feared not privacy but publicity. She feared exposure to the public eye. There's something really, I think, powerfully eloquent here about Emily Dickinson's own wrestling with the very same set of ideas and the very same cultural matrix that Samuel Warren and Louis Brandeis were working in, thinking about what it means to be trapped in a house and desiring only privacy. She didn't want to live in that box, but she lived in a world whose contradictions help explain how we live now, in which the only thing more cherished than privacy is publicity. People, when they read the Warren and Brandeis essay today, it can feel really fresh to you because it seems like all of a sudden there's a whole realm of technological change that has invaded our privacy. That's the anxiety that they felt about the intensity and complexity of modern life is very similar to our own, because they crafted that set of ideas, because their set of concerns arise out of the culture that has crafted our set of concerns. The insistence that there exists such a thing as a right to be left alone, which is another way that Warren and Brandeis defined the right to privacy, animates all manner of claims and arguments and litigation and even political movements. It lies, of course, most notably behind Supreme Court rulings legalizing contraception in 1965 and abortion in 1973, and invalidating sodomy laws in 2003. These crucial rulings advance liberty and equality, but the question remains whether grounding the pursuit of them in a right to privacy was ever a good idea. To protect against invasions by search engines and data miners and security cameras, privacy advocates marshal arguments made by Samuel Warren and Louis Brandeis in 1890, whose technological concerns were limited to the reporter's notebook and the photographer's camera. And again, it's a good question to ask whether those concerns apply to the set of constraints we're fighting against today. It might be helpful, I think, then, to remember that one reason this conversation has this kind of intensity is that much that was once mysterious became secret, and then it became private. The forces that drove and continue to drive this transformation from mystery to secrecy to privacy have to do with the acquisition, recording, and dissemination of knowledge. It's all about who can know. And especially with the mechanization and the secularization and the democratization of publication, which is not new. It's not something that happened with the rise of the internet. It's something that has happened over the course of centuries. I, by way of shorthand, illustrated this change thinking about how the printed book ushers in the age of the end of mystery and makes privacy possible, the camera which exposes the secrets of the natural world, and the book that's also a camera which we think invades our privacy. But the story here, when you then think about it and think about that clip from The Invisible Man, is that something deeper has gone on in the course of this transformation. The inviolability of the self has replaced the inscrutability of God, which is a really complicated transformation to have to reckon with as a culture. But of course, it's not only the government or corporations that are affecting this transformation or who have violated what we consider to be our inviolate selves. We have invaded our own privacy by becoming our own publicists, by creating a world in which the only thing more cherished than privacy is publicity. When thinking about the right to privacy, we ought also to be asking when publicity became a right.